There was an opportunity to write for guzheng with classical piano trio, violin, cello and piano. So in my mind these became one meta instrument, so a combined force of string sound. And each of them has different ways, different customary modes of playing the instruments. The piano by striking the key, which activates the hammer, which hits the string. And at the other end, we've got the guzheng, which is a plucked instrument or a strummed instrument, and has this two hands working together. So the right hand activates the sound in whatever way, and then the left hand usually is changing that sound, changing the pitch through the bending of the string. As I became more acquainted with that sound, it became much more sort of ingrained in the piece and infected it until it becomes kind of the main idea that I'm working with. So at the beginning of the piece I was thinking very much in terms of these isolated events which were discrete in themselves but formed sequences. As time goes on in the piece, the continuity of sound starts to take over, and so these isolated events turn into longer gestures and then finally into this long sequence at the end, a melodic sequence of the bending sound leading and all the players becoming participants in that sound world of the guzheng. So the guzheng's lowest note is normally that D, and I took it down to a B so that I could have it in approximately at the lowest point of the cello. So the cello has that C, and I could have the guzheng just taking it that little bit further and bending up to the C. So we had a lot of richness there. And then I continued going up and using quite a lot of the D pentatonic, and then changing it subtly, and at the top going for quite a brilliant bright sound. I often use that cluster. So you know that becomes the language or the raw material really for the piece, along with the sort of the more abstract and percussive sound world that I was working with. And then I also had a sort of melodic material that I was working with, so a cycle of 6 notes which I permutated, and they were sort of tied up with a kind of wanting a sort of particular kind of gesture. So the notation had challenges in 2 different directions. One was just simply giving the players a language to understand that what they were to do and how they were to produce the sound at any one moment. Finding the right kind of language to make a shared vocabulary of sound for these performers. With each of the different sound amalgamations, I'm trying to find a language that works so that they produce something together, but that also makes sense individually. The collaboration for me started with my early meetings with Shu. We had different sessions concentrating on different sounds. And And then we got together with the Fidelio Trio, and we had a day where we just played with sketches that I'd written and worked again on this sort of meta instrument, creating this meta instrument and bringing the sounds together. This piece, for me, is part of an ongoing engagement with the guzheng, and particularly on its own, as well as combining it with stringed instruments. Through these projects, through these collaborations, there is a very rich dialogue that takes place across cultures.